Hey, friends, family, Kenny Ortiz here. Welcome to this video. Many of you watching this are probably students of mine in my critical thinking class at Bethany Global University. But being that this is on the internet, I'm sure there are probably other people watching this as well. In this video, I want to tackle the topic, what is critical thinking? There are various definitions for critical thinking. There's a couple consensus, mainstream definitions. I'm going to give you kind of a slightly different take on it. Not dramatically different from mainstream consensus, but slightly different. When I think about critical thinking is simply critiquing ideas as you think about them before you embrace them as true. So if someone makes a statement and it comes into your ears and it starts to swirl around your brain, before you immediately think, yes, it's true, or no, it's definitely not true, what you want to do is critique it fairly. Right. So there's a right way to critique things, a fair way, and then there's a wrong way, an unrighteous or irrational way to critique things. And so what we want to do is use good, righteous, fair, objective rubrics to measure and evaluate and critique the ideas that go into our brains or go into our ears and swirl around our brains, and then we determine if it is right or wrong. So often people hear statements, they hear them, and they either immediately just say, oh yeah, it must be true, and they just embrace it as true without actually thinking about it, or the opposite. They don't like it. They don't like what they've heard. It bothers them, so they cast it off and they go, no, that's wrong. But they haven't ever actually thought about it objectively or considered it in any real, rational, helpful manner. And that's not helpful, okay, to your life. If you're going to be successful in life, you have to be a good critical thinker. All right, it's really important. If you're not a good critical thinker, you run the risk of believing things that are garbage or rejecting things that are actually helpful. And what we want to do is embrace the things that are helpful and reject the things that are garbage. And good critical thinking will help us do that. So that's really, really important. I believe critical thinking honors God, because when we're good critical thinkers, we are using our minds well. God gave us brains because he wants us to use those brains, right? Jesus tells us to love the Lord thy God with all your heart, mind, and soul and strength. God wants us to love him with our minds. And the way we do that is to use our brains effectively. Our brains are so powerful, right? It's an incredible organ with incredible unique powers. And it gives humans the ability to reason and do things that no other creature can do. It is far beyond any computer ever developed. The human mind is amazing, and we want to utilize it well. All right, so it honors God. Using your brain effectively and objectively and rationally honors God. It's a form of loving him. It's a manner in which we honor him and the gift of the brain that he has given us. We want to make sure we do that well. Critical thinking also gives you the opportunity to be successful in life because you're able to think rightly about things. If you are not a good critical thinker, your chances of being successful in life are pretty much close to zero. Now, almost everyone is good at critical thinking sometimes. Like, they're somewhat good at it some of the times. The problem is most people are not good at it in enough scenarios. Like, so maybe in 10 or 20% of the moments in your life, you're a really good critical thinker. And maybe like 10 or 20% of the moments in your life, you're kind of like average mediocre. But like maybe like 60 to 80% of the time, you're not a good critical thinker at all. Right. So that's how most people are. Like, sometimes they're good at it, sometimes they're mediocre, but a lot of the times they're really bad at it. And that you can kind of get by with that in life to some extent, but you're going to have a significant handicap, meaning there's going to be limits to your potential. You're not going to be nearly as effective in life. But if you can flip that around, if you can become really good at critical thinking in 80, 90% of the situations you face, well, your potential goes up. The natural ceiling is broken there, and you're going to be far more likely to be much more successful in life. So we want to be good critical thinkers because it honors God. It's a form of honoring him by using the gift of our brain effectively, and it sets us up for success in a dramatically better fashion than if we were not good critical thinkers. So critical thinking is extremely important. We want to listen to things, we want to evaluate them and critique them fairly, and then either embrace them or reject them, or maybe embrace parts of it and reject parts of it. That's extremely well. Right now in our society, we have a lot of people that are just buying into garbage ideologies because they're not really critically thinking about them. So we're going to talk a lot about that. For those of you who are my students, we'll talk a lot about that in the course of our class, Critical Thinking. For those of you who are not my students, I'd encourage you, do some research. You maybe check out some of my other videos, check out some other videos on critical thinking, and challenge yourself to be a good critical thinker.